Well, hi, Bill.
Well, surprise, surprise.
I don't want to be late.
Yeah, you and Dick Galant are always on the spot.
There's something wrong with this. How you doing?
Pretty good. What about yourself?
Not bad.
Looks pretty sunny over your way. Down here it is.
It is. We've had 2 warm days now in a row, so that portends to something positive. Actually, it's supposed to be a good week.
Right, yeah. So we'll see who else decides to join us today. Two minutes to go to showtime.
Hmm.
Your room there looks pretty bright and cheerful.
Well, it is. We have our house is pretty open. Um, it's an old bungalow built back in the 20s, the last 20s, not this 20s. And the as we've progressed with it, and we've been here for 40 years, but have the walls are all light, and we refinished the woodwork. And it's kind of an open, welcoming place. The walls are decorated with a few pictures of one sort and another.
Yeah, oh gosh, we've lived in this place for closing in on 40 years now. And Diane's uncle and cousin fixed up our basement into a nice little office work area. So I'm down in the basement, but they did a wonderful job of fixing this. It's hard to imagine that was that long ago. My gosh, place hasn't been painted since then either.
We had we had the living room, dining room, and kitchen area. We had repainted. I think it's 2 years ago now, maybe it's three, and had the walls in the living room and dining room refinished. They were replastered, but skim coated using a drywall cement that is this particular cement's really, really tough. And the paint has, I don't remember exactly what it is. It has a blend of a kind of it's not rock, but of something blended into it that makes it very hard. I don't think it's acrylic, but it might be. And we had the ceilings were they may have been kind of a 10-plate ceiling at one point, and it had been painted over multiple times with the paint that kind of creates a plaster on it. And so we had them put up skimmus, a drywall ceiling in there too. So it looks a lot better than it ever has. Hi, Dick.
How you doing, both of you? You look good, Paul, and good to see you. Thanks, Bill, for your help in all this.
Oh, yeah. So it looks like we've got a pretty nice day all over the place out in Ann Arbor too, I guess.
Yeah, it was beautiful today.
I get out and have a route that I walk around our apartment condo complex. It takes an even mile, and I walk that right through the winter months, unless it's really, really bad out that makes it just too, even when the temperature is down in the 20s, and my wife would say, yeah, what are you doing? It's cold. Well, I decided I wanted to make sure I got some exercise, so I set my mind on it every day to get out there and take a walk if I can. So this is the first winter that I've made it through like almost every day. So even in the worst of weather.
Good for you.
That's good, yeah.
Well, I walk, but not as far as you do, so you're pretty diligent. However, you'll see that it does pay health benefits, health-wise, just doing that all the time.
Mm-hmm.
By the way, before I forget it, I noticed that there for a minute or a second or two, my screen went all that kind of fuzzy and sort of froze up. I don't know if you saw it on your end or not.
Yes.
That's my Comcast that does that.
Okay.
It's just so unpredictable. But the show continues even when my screen is blocked off. I can hear what everybody else is saying, and I guess I've never tried to speak during one of those strange situations. So I don't know whether people can hear me or just everything is frozen up or not. The other thing I wanted to kind of remind, especially you guys, the recording starts when the first person logs on.
Mm-hmm.
So in this case, Paul was on maybe a minute or two before I joined. I get a message by email that says, Paul has joined, and so I know then I got to get in there and log in. And the session continues until the last person signs out, or until I decide at the very end to end the session. So in the event that I get all these kind of crazy Comcast situations, the show continues to be recorded.
Well, it went on. It gave a little white and blue thing on there, and you were supposed to click on it that you're accepting it, and then it went away. So it was fine.
And what I saw was just the video was all broken up.
Yeah.
I think I saw all three cameras, but and then it came clear.
Well, I couldn't recommend Comcast for anybody who had a choice. It's just so unpredictable around us, and I right in the middle of something, all of a sudden everything will shut down. So we just got to wait until it reboots. Sometimes I have to manually go in and restart the whole system. I had heard from my brother over in Muskegon. He always was having problems with Comcast, and I never had any problems really until the last 6 months or so, when things just kind of became very unpredictable. So anyway, what systems are you guys using anyway?
I have
We're on-
Comcast. Oh, I'm sorry, Paul.
What do you have?
I have Comcast, and interestingly, for the last couple weeks, we were having problems with the reception and that, and we finally had a guy come in and he took the wire that goes between the box and our house and said that we needed a new one. So they replaced it within the last week. Overall, now where I live, all the wires are basically underground. I don't know about you, but overall we seem to be, you know, kind of in quotes normal as far as some of that. One of the things that's interesting, it's kind of related to that, I guess. First of all, our next door neighbor is the CIO, the Chief Information Officer for the University of Michigan. So he's in charge of all the computers in the whole university. Think of that. But one of the things I notice, if I were to have I walk around and I put headsets on, and I usually listen to novels or, you know, podcasts. And it's interesting that when I do that, it's on, what is it called? Bluetooth. That you pass around around the neighborhood, and you can, you switch, you kind of switch the reception because your home's range, you're out of that, but it goes into another one, so you just keep going around and maintain. I do like Bluetooth. You get a little bit nervous because there isn't any wire, but it's pretty effective. And the other thing that I used to have the small ones, the Apple ones in there, and they kept falling out of my ear. So I decided I was going to buy a really good pair. So I got Bowers Wilkins, which are quite good, I think. Very good quality. And I wanted that. And I, walk around with them and things are fine. Hi, Bill.
How we
There
doing,
you go.
everybody?
Pretty good.
Good.
Now tell me, is that a real background or is that just what you
Well,
have?
It's just
background,
my little place on the. No, it's manufactured. My palm tree does not look quite that good, but I am still in Florida.
Wow. That's pretty impressive.
I do it just to aggravate those people that are in the north.
Well, Paul's close to Lake Michigan. He could have a scene of the best beaches in the world, man. I don't care what anybody says. Those are.
Oh, I agree. I agree. Lake Michigan is a great place to be.
Yeah.
No, we're not that close.
Well, you're relatively close though, Paul.
Yeah, it's 40 miles,
Well, are you in Allegan County?
No, we're in Kalamazoo County.
Well, you're right next to Allegan, though, aren't you?
Yeah.
One of the things that's interesting is, when we were little kids and Disney used to do those bird movies, Rex Allen used to tell you about the birds. Those were filmed some of them were filmed in Allegan County because it has the most, I think, variety of birds because they use the birds use it as a stepping stone
mhm.
to go on to Canada or vice versa. So, I don't know if you want to bear with me. I'll tell you an interesting story about beaches. I got assigned to Hawaii for my military service.
Oh.
Yeah, I know. But so I flew.
Somebody's got to do it.
Yeah, someone had to be there. But anyways, I flew to. I was stationed at Schofield Barracks, which is where the movie From Here to Eternity was filmed there. Part of it was, and it's about 25 miles from Honolulu. It's on the North Shore, but I got in at night. Everywhere I go at night. You can't see a darn thing, right? But it was Labor Day weekend, and so we had the I got in, I don't know what day it was. It must have been Friday or Saturday, but basically I was free to go wherever I wanted to. So I decided, well, I want to see Waikiki Beach, right? So the way I got there was on a bus. And so I took a bus and I get to downtown Honolulu, and and it's all buildings. And I was going parallel to the beach. And I'm going along, and this guy next to me, he's an Asian guy, and I said, well, can you tell me where the beach is? Because I don't know where the heck I'm going. And so he all of a sudden we stopped. He said, get off here. So I got off, and I said, well, where is the beach? He says, it's right there. And it was a big hotel. And I couldn't find the beach. So I decided to go across the street. And it's called the International Village. If you ever watch Magnum or some of these places, they have a movie, or like one of those serials in Hawaii, that's a real popular place. So I'm walking around this place, and there's all kinds of vendors and everything. It's kind of neat. And I'm asking, where's the beach? He said, it's over there, where I came back. So I finally went into the hotel, and I asked a guy in the hotel, I said, where's the beach? It's really stupid. And he points to a door, just like it looked like a door to the bathroom. So I said, okay, I walked there, opened the door, and there's Waikiki Beach. I never realized that Bill, you'll really identify with this. All the hotels are literally right on the beach. But the other thing that was surprising to me was that I thought, well, and growing up and going to Lake Michigan my whole life, I thought, Bill, you can identify with Muskegon and Grand Haven and all of Paul. And Bill, you've seen it. I thought I was going to see all of that. Well, all I saw is about 10 feet, and the sand was about as hard as concrete. And it wasn't really that impressive. So, but eventually, since we were off every weekend, we would you'd go down there, and at Fort DeRussy, which is where, this is during the Vietnam War, there was an R&R place. And it had grass, and it had, Bill's palm trees around. And then the other thing is that...
what type of grass are we talking about?
Yeah, they're the grass that you don't smoke.
Oh, okay. Just checking.
I mean, but I know a lot of guys in the Army had a lot of grass. So, but anyways, the other advantage was, since it was a military facility, you could get drinks and everything for next to nothing. And then you could, the beach is just like what is right behind Bill and his, the scenery there. But it was an incredibly scenic venue, the places I saw, and I was really fortunate to see. But I to this day, I could never figure out where the beach was.
It's funny. We moved from Detroit to Muskegon in 1949. And my cousins who still lived in Detroit, every now and then, this was back before freeways, so they would come up to Muskegon every maybe 4 or 5 years. And the first thing they wanted to do was to go out to the beach. And us kids kept thinking, well, what's the big deal? I mean, Okay, we'll go out to the beach. We go out to the beach just about every day, jump on our little bikes, and it's amazing that us little kids, 5, 6 years old, bicycled 5 miles from home out to the beach by ourselves. We just did it. And
Exactly.
I never appreciated that until I moved back to Detroit in '66. And they would always make this big deal about how they had a picnic on Kensington Park. I didn't know Kensington Park from anything. But one day I went out to Kensington Park, out there near Milford, and saw what was considered the beach. It was just, like 6 feet of mud. And it wasn't until that time that I really appreciated that here was Lake Michigan Beach with all this sun and sand and stuff that we just kind of took for granted until I got down to where it was a mud beach. And we on Belle Isle there is a little bit of sand on one side of the island, but growing up on Lake Michigan, we just took those things for granted. Big deal.
We were very spoiled on Lake Michigan, and
Oh, yeah.
until you go around the other parts of the Great Lakes and realize that Lake Michigan has some of the best beaches on the Michigan side, with the sand and the dunes and everything, and then you get over into Lake Huron and so on, which is a lot of rocks, and there's just not any comparison to what we have over on the west side. And too bad that all the people from Illinois already discovered that, but
Yeah.
The what I was surprised at when I first came to Ann Arbor and go to the University of Michigan, I'd meet all these these people from Detroit. Nothing wrong with that, Bill. but seriously, what I talk about Lake Michigan, and they had no clue about it. It was, what I was surprised at is that they were in the state and they really didn't really have much of a idea about what Western Michigan was like, which really surprised me. I don't know.
One thing that struck me was, people would ask me, like at holiday time, where are you going? I say, oh, over to Muskegon. And they'd say, oh, up north. It's like,
no, you look
growing
at
up
your
in
hand.
Muskegon,
It's not that far north.
yeah, up north meant, you were going maybe up to Leadington, but mostly you weren't up north until you went to at least Traverse City.
Yeah.
That was up north. Going to Muskegon was not up north. It just sort of struck me. You were talking about people's knowledge of geography. It was like there wasn't a whole lot.
Well,
with all of the
what I had to do in the Army, I was basically I was in a trained in the field artillery. So we shot 105 howitzers. And but one of the things that was clear to me was how important it was that you could read a map and just have a sense of direction. I mean, one time we were out somewhere we had never been before, and this guy says, "Give me 3 guys, or I want my best guys." So because they were going to guard the camp at night, right? And all they had to do was walk in a circle. Well, they got lost. It was just amazing. But how important that was as far as just knowing how to read a map. Because basically how they shoot all that, how they shoot the artillery, how important that is. That's why I don't know what the word is, fearful of how this whole thing with Ukraine. I just know what those those guns can do. It's just terrifying. And I'm glad I saw it in a way, but
we just assume that map reading is an innate skill. Everybody knows how to read a map. When I started teaching, that would
Not
have been
anybody
like,
below the age of 50.
right. Well, here, I taught social studies in high school, and it seems like I always started my classes at the beginning of the semester with some basic geography. We get these blank outline maps that, we could see, okay, this is land and this is water. I mean, there wasn't anything on the map that indicated what was water and what was land, but you just sort of, you knew. And here we were, kids in 9th grade and 11th grade. That was a mistake. They didn't really have any concept of what, a lot of them, I would say, couldn't differentiate between land and water. And, we'd have them fill in the names of the countries. It really meant nothing to a lot of these kids. And probably the biggest indicator of the problem was we had a kid who was obvious to me that he had some pretty severe reading difficulties. And so I got together with his counselor and we decided to send him over to one of the, hey, are you guys able to hear me now?
You're all right, Bill. You're all right.
Okay. Yeah, that video is now screwing
The
up.
video's going crazy, but you're fine.
Right. Anyway, we decided we would send him over to one of the district offices where he could be tested properly for his reading. And so, I told him, okay, well, all you have to do, I mean, even gave him bus fare to go. It was a little ways. So I said, you just go down, get on. The street was Charlevoix or Werner or whatever. And I said, you go just a couple of miles to the west and you get off at Kirchhoffel Street and you walk down to Kirchhoffel and you'll be right at the place. And he had first of all, his sense of direction was just minimal. Going west and then south didn't mean a whole lot to him. And then he couldn't read the street signs, which, we just assume, well, what the heck? Everybody can read street signs. Not the case. So, I mean, this was 1960s, late 60s at Southeastern High School in Detroit. I mean, we just sort of assume, again, like I was saying, everybody has a basic set of skills that everybody knows. That was a wake-up call for me. Jeez.
Say hi to Mike.
Hello.
Hi.
Hello,
Hey,
guys.
Mike.
Hey.
Good to see you, man.
Yeah.
And it's good to see you.
I've got another friend, Mike Murphy, in Detroit. So when I'm getting messages, I got to pay careful attention to their email address so I know which one I'm sending these messages to. So,
I hope he's a good guy.
oh, yeah.
Right.
Good Irishman, boy.
Oh,
He's an
yeah.
Irishman. He's got to be a good guy.
Now, Mike, you're in Lansing, is that where you are?
Williamston.
Oh, yeah. The place is called Williamston. It's about
Okay,
15
right.
miles out of Lansing. Yeah.
Right. Okay.
It's east of Lansing, kind of. It's
Yes.
right.
Right.
Kind of. Does it abut Okemos?
Okemos is between Williamston and Lansing.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. It abuts it there. It's kind of a nice farm area there.
Oh, yeah. Okemos is a rather tony place to live. So,
You shun
Yeah.
that. You want to go to the Irish town in Williamston, huh?
yeah.
Yeah, praise
Yeah,
the king,
yeah. Yeah, if you need the Irish guys to come here.
This will be, again, a throwback to the 50s and the 60s. Like I said, I grew up in Muskegon, and our families were still down in the Detroit area. And with unfinished freeways, the only way we could get from Muskegon to the Detroit area was taking Grand River
Yeah,
Ooh,
down and go through. We drove through
go through Lansing.
Lansing, and then
and Lansing does not know how to handle Grand River. They call everything Grand River. It goes north,
Or
south.
MAC,
west.
MAC or Grand River, one or the other.
Yeah,
Right.
Grand River is a terrible street to have to be caught on.
and then out of Lansing, it was Portland. Isn't Portland?
Well, towards Muskegon, yeah, Portland.
Oh, okay. No, yeah. Well, one of those had this neat bridge that we would drive over to get there, and we always
That's right. Yeah, it goes over. Actually, goes over the Grand River.
right.
There.
We always associated that Lansing area with a pit stop for the family. That was like a 3-hour drive from Muskegon to Lansing,
Oh
and
yeah,
then
it's a haul. It's a haul.
another 3.5 hours to get down to Detroit. That was a
Well,
trek.
you know how Novi got its name, don't you?
Well, it's something new. I remember that from
Well,
that.
no, it isn't. That it was it's the sixth stagecoach stop on Grand River outside Detroit. Novi, N-O number
Oh,
5 or
ah,
6, rather.
Oh.
Excuse me. That's how it got its name. So you live by there, don't you? Novi, you live in northern. Where do you live?
Novi's farther east.
Oh, okay.
and I'm up north of Detroit, northwest of Detroit, up closer really to Pontiac than Detroit itself.
Oh, okay.
So we always watch the weather for Pontiac to see what it's going to be like around us.
Right. Because the weather comes on 96 and it kind of goes straight, where the
Yeah.
weather here in Ann Arbor comes on 94. It comes off the lake from Kalamazoo and then keeps heading east that way. Yours heads north and then goes towards Port Huron.
Right. Hey, speaking of weather, do you guys remember the Palm Sunday tornado in Grand Rapids?
Oh my gosh!
Seminary
Yes.
days.
When the sky turned green,
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, we were all in the like the TV room or something. When all
Right,
of a sudden it really got strange.
Yeah, I remember being out on the smoking path at that time, and they got that strange color. And the funny thing is, I saw somebody else who grew up in the Detroit area and was mentioning how the weather around her turned this greenish color. So it wasn't.
Yeah.
It was really memorable. And I remember the following. That was on Palm Sunday, and when my mother picked us up on Good Friday, we decided we'd drive through that Holt area, not Holt, Sparta. That's where Dick Host, Dick Host lived up in there.
Right, there were trees going through bushes and everything else up there.
That's right.
Right. Yeah. So
The church there on 3 Mile, I can't remember, but it was a Catholic church. It collapsed basically.
yeah, I think it was St. Mary's or something like that, wasn't it?
St. Mary's is, well, no, it wasn't St. Mary's because St. Mary's is in Grand Rapids by Union High School. But it was, I can't remember the name. I just know there's a church in Alpine and that got raised, if you will, from the tornado there because that's where that's hit along there. That's where all the apple orchards are. The start of them there heading north from there. But it was devastating.
I guess the funny thing that looking back on that now, that was 1965, I think, 64, 65. I don't recall us ever doing anything in the seminary when these storms were passing right over us.
Nobody told us anything.
Yeah.
No duck and cover there.
It's a voice of God.
Yeah, I mean, that was really strange when you see the devastation that
Oh,
these
yeah.
storms can do.
Yeah, we're just
And-
looking out at all of the stuff that's going on and things flying around. And oh, look, cool.
Again, over in Muskegon, the tornadoes would come in from the southwest
That's
and kind
right.
of hit the dunes over on Lake Michigan and kind of zip right
Bounce.
over Muskegon.
Yeah, they
And as
would
a-
bounce up over.
Yeah, I can remember as a kid outside of our house, and we would watch in the backyard as these storms that literally just came right over us. Never seen a tornado before in my life until
I don't
till
think
that-
I want to see one.
When I was in the Peace Corps and I was stationed in the Philippines, I was up in the mountain in the southern island of Mindanao, and I was up in the province of Bukidnon, and we had a storm coming in, and one of my co-workers came into the station and said, sir, come out and look at this funny cloud. And I came out of the door and looked straight up, and it is a swirling tornado directly above us. And I said, get out of here, get inside, lay low. And it was the first tornado that they had ever seen in the Philippines in umpteen years. And it hit probably a block and a half away. It tore the roof off of a large building and put it into a park and so on. But I mean, I have never looked straight up and seen a tornado directly above me. And it's a clean your underwear kind of a situation.
You also want it to be a once in a lifetime experience.
Yes, you do want it to be a once in a lifetime. I've been in a few earthquakes, but that was my first and only direct contact with a
There
tornado.
was a lady they interviewed on the radio on NPR about a month ago, and she had been in an earthquake. She had been in a tornado in Michigan and something else, and then in the earthquake in Turkey. I couldn't believe this lady was in all these kinds of, these catastrophic experiences. I don't know if maybe she was even in a volcano. I don't know.
Not somebody you want to date.
Say again?
Not somebody you want to date.
The weather's with you. Yeah. What's the weather today? I did see. I'll say in a way, I was fortunate to again in Hawaii. We went on Oahu, which was where we were stationed.
Lucky
we
man.
went to the Big Island, Hawaii, and I did see Kilauea, which is where the volcano erupts. And I got on one time while we were down, we would have, this is kind of wild, on the weekend, I'd have my own vehicle, and we could go down to the, basically on the beach and stay there for $12 a night, because all we need is a place to sleep and take a shower. And it was actually that town where they have the pentathlon, where they swim and all do all that right there. It's a real small place. Anyways, went and we were like on the other side of the volcano, and we went and there was a road and everything, and then about 3/4 of a mile or half a mile from where I was at, there was first of all there was a tree. I don't know, it wasn't a palm tree, but a live tree. And there was like a prairie, and then there was like a cliff that went right in the ocean. Fine. Come back the next day, and there was probably a foot of lava. And the lava was flowing from there, and I don't know how far it was from Kilauea just to get there, that flowed into that 1/4 mile or so into the ocean. And when it hit the ocean, I couldn't believe this. It spewed smoke as big as a cloud. And the lava was still warm enough that if you smoked, you could light a cigarette. And the crack, and where that tree was, it was completely dead. It was just bang. I mean, the branches were still on it, but I mean, the force of nature, and it was just awesome to see something like that. Like Bill's saying with what he saw, it was pretty humbling. I'm glad I saw it in a way, but I mean, it was, you describe it or you read it, but to see it is just moving it, to you.
Hey, I'm guessing that we're probably reached about as many people as we're gonna get. So why don't we do this? Dick, did you give any more thought to your the book there about the
Wandering mind?
Yeah.
Funny you should say. Oops.
Did anybody else find the book or get a chance to read it? I got it from my library.
I
Oh,
skimmed it.
Yeah. It's. Do you want me to comment on it? I know if I get too boring on this, just
I can mute you.
There we go.
seriously, I went back.
I can shut you out entirely. Yeah, go ahead.
I guess the reason I was just some background, just to maybe bore you, but I go to church and I watch these when they have the school kids are in there, and also my own self, and they go to mass, and I'm wondering, well, what are they thinking about when mass is going on? I mean, I know what kind of is generally expected, but even in the seminary, we were told to, we were told, well, go meditate for 10 minutes every day. We did that, but how are you supposed to do it? That's what. And like what was the deal? Except we were always silent. And I remember one thing that Father Zeskowski, I don't know if you had him for religion class, but he made the comment more than once that to study the early fathers and what they wrote. Well, this particular book, it's written by a lady who is a professor at the University of Georgia, and she studies kind of pre-Renaissance time. And she studied the monks basically and tried to make a comparison between if you will, the distractions we have today and how the monks tried to be distraction free, if you will. And I thought that it's something that I'm talking we now, when we're in the seminary, they never really talked about the monks. I mean, in the sense of what the heck were these people doing for all this time? And to give you a kind of a perspective of who this lady's writing about, she's basically, are you familiar with the term the Levant? It's the Mediterranean. It's kind of the like if Sicily, where the boot is, and then there's the countries like Egypt, principally, some of a little bit of Syria, and then keep going that way. Well, that's what this basically is about, and it really is talking about the early church and how the monks came together. And I also think about like when we were in the seminary, how we kind of, as a prayer group, I'm not trying to convert anybody or anything, just like what did we accomplish in doing that and how they came together. And some people, kind of the story of how these monks came together. Some of them would go out into a cave. I thought that's crazy to me. Go out in the desert and sit in a cave all your life. And then, but I mean, that's what they did. They also had a guy that went up on a pole. I remember in grade school hearing about it, and he'd live his life on a pillar.
Yeah.
That's nuts in a way. But what she was trying to do is see how they tried to accomplish, thinking, or like being distracted, or trying to concentrate on a religious experience throughout their life, their time there, in their way of in praying and the like. And it was kind of different. I just wanted to get a feeling and a sense of it. Would I do something like that? I don't know. But we were in the seminary. But after we left, I'm thinking, how did that affect maybe each of us as far as our ability to do things, because most of us did a lot of academic things after we left the seminary, in the sense of going to college. How do you maintain your concentration, improve things? It's just, it's kind of simple in a way, but I mean, we're kind of struggling with that all the time. Now, there's one thing that happened that she wrote about, that Bill has asked this question. We mentioned it last time, which I found interesting. This was dealing with one of the things that there was kind of an evolutionary thing, but the monks tried to do is read the Bible, right, and then kind of meditate on that. Well, they would. One of the things is, remember, is the early scriptures were all like one line, right? I mean, they were. The Latin was. I'm going to use Latin. Was written as contiguous.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And
there was no spacing. No spacing between words. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I didn't realize, and this was coming from a different source, and I knew this in history. There was a monk whose name was Alcuin, Alquin, and he was. This was like 826, and he, in a sense, was affiliated with Charlemagne. And when Charlemagne took over, he tried to. He wanted to make sure everybody could read. Now, the reason was, supposedly, like, if you could read the Bible on that. Well, that wasn't really his reason. His motive was that he wanted people to be understanding and be able to pay taxes. So they were, that motive. But anyways, Alcuin was affiliated with the cathedral, and that's how they started the cathedral schools. And that's how he was educated. But prior to that, what the monks were doing, or even during Alcuin's time, he invented like the punctuation of like at the end of the sentence, and breaking up words and the like. And so that it was more, well, think of us when we were translating, especially Greek. Like if you had to do that, we were so used to, noun, verb, object, and then to kind of teach that to people, to others regarding that. That's kind of how it all started, and it was in trying to make, the monks trying to get an interpretation of the Bible was how they would also be taught to write marginalia. There was an Irish monk, apparently, he wrote something in there that this person who was the found, and he says he was complaining about having a hangover, but but it was just something that I was curious about, and I thought it would be interesting to, how others dealt with this, especially, we were the way we had to study. Remember the amount of time that you were silent? You really had to be with yourself, or, within yourself, which is kind of pretty unusual for somebody when we were that age to be kind of held back in a way, supposedly. So I don't know, Paul, you have any comments on it or something? I don't know if I captured it enough, but that was my take on a little bit.
My reading on it was entirely different.
Okay, good. Well, that's all right. That's the way it should be.
I had, and again, I skimmed through it pretty fast.
Right.
But I was trying to get, the basic flavor. And she follows a context of she follows a context of just looking at the world in that early time, and as I interpreted it, that these monks, both men and women,
That's right. Thank you.
that they were they were trying to apply what they knew from Scripture in whatever fashion that existed to the experience of the world as they saw it.
Mhm.
And then so she, the chapters of this book are the world, community, body, books, memory, and mind.
Right.
And she's tracking through this kind of application that even though a lot of these people were solitary, that they did share stuff in one fashion or another, that their struggle moved into community, and then they started applying it to the way they're as individuals they function, which would be body, and then they started putting it into books, and moved from that to getting to the point that they were memorizing it,
Mhm.
and then they were developing kind of an ethereal grasp of what was going on. My assessment was that she was a history professor.
That's right.
She had researched all this stuff. She had, all these individual people and so forth. And that, I mean, at one point I was accusing her of writing a master's thesis, trying to tie this all together. She got through it and she published it. I don't think that, I think that she was writing more from the experience of a person with a doctorate. But so, I just it didn't particularly appeal to me in that direction. But I guess I've as a kid, I was a farm boy. I did not milk cows. I did some work with hogs, but I operated some machinery, helped plant and harvest and was, very cognizant of the way weather and the seasons shaped our clock, actually. That planting in the spring and keeping the weeds out of the corn, cultivating the corn so that the corn would produce, and then cutting hay, harvesting grain, picking corn, all just and I had kind of a basic scientific explanation of what was going on with that, and stuff just kind of fit and fell into place. My folks were religious. My mother's family knew a lot of priests in southern Michigan, due to the fact that at the end of World War I, as the Spanish flu was hitting people, that her mother took in the young assistant at St. John's in Albion and nursed him back to health. And he was a friend of the family forever after that. And they knew all of his assistants who worked with him in various parishes. He was a senior, a Monsignor before he retired. And that, the kind of the mechanics of how we lived together, that was, kind of part of my experience. I was in a looking at the term here, an interdenominational community, and we knew and got along very well with the Methodists, and a little less well with the Reformed, and the Christian Reformed. They were kind of another group altogether that we really didn't understand. Although they rode, there were a bunch of those kids who rode on my bus, because the bus would pick up kids for Martin Public Schools or Martin Rural Agricultural School. And they would, along the way, they would pick up kids who were going to the Christian Reformed school out at East Martin. And, so at the end of the route, we drop those kids off, and then we'd be taken into Martin for our schooling. Then after school, the buses ran a reverse route, picked up the kids at East Martin and dropped them off home. So as a kindergartner, I was the first one on the bus and the last one off the bus. That summer, my mother was in the superintendent's office every week, getting that turned around so that the system was different. and I don't know what they did, but it was different in first grade. So, anyway, I just, I kind of took everything just with an expectation of the experiences that were coming up were learning experiences, and I was a bright kid within the perspective of being able to absorb stuff and regurgitate it. I had sort of a photographic mind for texts in middle school that I could write the paragraph out to answer a question, and now just from memory, word for word, and got away with it. But every step along the line was, it was kind of an evolving thing. I had a type of faith then that I don't have now. That I talked to God about what we were doing, what I was supposed to get out of this, what I was supposed to get out of that. So I was malleable in those contexts. I'm quite a bit different now because I'm looking at this, and I have accepted that hi, Pete.
Hey, Pete.
Yet. He's coming in. It says Pete Garthe.
Connected.
Is coming in. There he is. Hi, Pete.
That shadow is Bill Gebhard.
Oh, down in Florida.
Here, I'll turn some light on the subject.
Yeah. So anyway, we've been talking about my upbringing. We can go on to something else now.
When I read the book, probably I was more influenced by what you had said, Dick, as sort of the preamble to the whole thing, that the experiences of the people in the monasteries how it shaped Christian education and our experiences in the seminary. And so I was sort of looking at, again, like Paul Banner, I was sort of skimming through because it was getting a little hard to follow so many of these individuals. But a couple of things that struck me was the solitary nature of how they tried to concentrate, was to shut themselves off as much as possible from contact with the, quote, the outside world, outside influences. And I mean, that struck me right off the bat with our experiences in the seminary. We walked through those doors in September of 1960, and we had, I can remember sending postcards home to my family, maybe once a week or once every 2 weeks. It was always the same thing. Hi, how you doing? This is what I did this week. And I know that messages that were sent from home to us, the envelopes are always placed on that table outside the rector's office. Isn't that how we got our mail?
I thought they passed it out in the refectory, didn't they?
thought so.
They had somebody. I can't remember.
Well, maybe it was just certain pieces of mail that got opened if they looked a little unusual. But I mean, we were pretty much cut off. I can remember in 1960 there was the election of 1960, and we knew JFK. I couldn't say at that time that I knew anything about who the vice president was. I can remember in our subsequent couple of years of classes, one of the faculty members kept referring to Lady Bird. And I was trying to figure out, what is this stuff about Lady Bird? I don't get it. And we were really, pretty much restricted to what we could read about what was taking place outside.
That's right.
Literally outside the walls of the seminary. So that kind of, and I remember when Kennedy was assassinated, I was trying to figure out, well, who the vice president is. This was 1963. It was like you had to go through your mind and say, well, let's see. Okay, that must be this Johnson guy. Here we were. In 1963, we were juniors in high school, and at least me, it wasn't like this kind of information was right at the in front of me. We had that reading room where you could, I think we were able to read U.S. News and World Report and maybe a couple of other magazines. But our contact was very, very limited. And looking at it in retrospect, we were being sheltered from what was taking place in the world around us that we didn't need to know about that. We needed to, just concentrate on what we're doing here within the walls of the seminary. So that was one thing that really struck me about the book and the lives of these early monks and sisters. I don't even know when they became known as sisters.
She never explained that, I don't believe.
Right. The other thing very similar to that was the strict adherence of these monks and sisters to what was called the order. Whatever monastery they were in had a book or a set of rules called the order, and they were bound to follow the order. And that reminded me of our experience with the rule book, and it governed every aspect of our lives. That was the other thing that kind of struck me about the book. In our experience was, like you had said, and again, and maybe I got in that frame of mind because of what Dick had said. But then it got me thinking about our experience there, being sheltered from outside distractions, began to change gradually. And I think Kennedy's death was one of the things that started, that may have had an influence on isolating us from what was taking place in the world. But at some point, somebody would post like the front page of a paper down on one of the bulletin boards down in that recreation room. Does anybody remember that whole thing?
It was in the gym.
Yeah, right.
Was Pete in charge of that? Because it was always the sports page. In case Pete watch him post it there, but
But if you could line up and catch a little bit of news, that was about the extent of it. When we got over into St. Henry's Hall, we had maybe one or two more magazines that were available over there, but our isolation is one of the things that struck me. And in retrospect, I now kind of wonder, was our experience any different from that of other seminaries around the country, around the world at that time? Does anybody have any sense of that? I can't see that we were that different from the rest of the world.
Probably not.
I have two answers to that. First of all, I want to get back to Kennedy. When we had a retreat, John Kennedy went his campaign vehicles and that went right in front of Burton Street.
Oh,
And they have a picture, I got one, of the nuns or cooks and everything going out to see him. That they never even told us. But the whole group went right by us because we were in like I said, we were in the retreat. Remember, you couldn't talk from Tuesday till Saturday or something like that. The second thing, though, in your question about others, Paul and Pete can give us, their impressions. But when I went to Baltimore, I got the feeling that St. Joe was pretty narrow. I mean, we were, we were really towing the line. Others seemed a little, I'll use the word, but a little bit more worldly. Now, the people that we encountered that I was only there 1 year, but they came from basically from Maine all the way down to South Carolina, right up and down the coast of the East Coast. I think there was a person from West Virginia, and I'm talking about my class. They just seem to be more, I'll use the word hip, and then we were from Michigan. I don't regret what happened to me there at all, but I don't know how Paul or Peter would think about it, but or Peter and Paul, I don't know. But seriously, how their encounter and their experience there. But
I'd like you to answer that before I do.
You'd like who to answer it? Me?
You, yes.
Oh. I never really compared our experience, the minor seminary, with the other people, but Dick may be correct. It was very nice. The opening up at Packet Street at St. Mary's, meeting people from Maine all the way down to the bottom along the coast there, and meeting new people and having much more freedom and stuff. So I enjoyed it very much at Packet Street, and still am in touch with classmates from there. So in 2 years, it had quite an effect on my life, I think. Yeah.
I was, I felt all along that most of our classmates had a much better integration of how what they were doing fit into the society, that they had a better, not civic isn't the term, but that they were more polished, and not in the fashion of class, but that they had a lot of perspectives in dealing with people that I didn't, because my experience at St. Joe's was, was much, much more narrowly focused. I was only there for 1 year, and it was a good experience for me.
I think that from the Paul and Peter can talk too, but I think as far as the preparation of the especially with the languages and some of the theological thing, I think we were ahead of the others on those scores. But I say ahead in the sense of understanding, because I think you both did too, but I had a class in ontology, and which is the study of being, B-E-I-N-G. And I don't think you could take a course in philosophy that's more boring than that. But and also the instructor was I don't know. Anyways, but we were a little bit more sophisticated religiously because of the way we were, I guess, use the word, cult, I don't know if that's the right word, educated at St. Joe's. Not that we were brighter than they were at all. That wasn't it. It was more background, and because there were a lot of very bright people there. But it was a good experience, and I think that all the others that that were to follow us to go to Baltimore, or to I know Frank mentioned he went to San Antonio. I think that would be a good experience too. You got out of Grand Rapids and in the kind of the culture of Grand Rapids, which is kind of singular. There's a lot of good things there, but it's pretty parochial. And I was thankful for that.
What about Mike? Did you go on to major seminary at all or not? I can't recall.
You mean me?
Yeah.
No. I left after the sixth, graduated from St. Joe. The rector told me I was going to go somewhere else.
Well, what about you, Bill? Did you go?
I went to Sacred Heart in Detroit, which was quite a bit different than St. Joe's. Joe Rattlet and I were the two from St. Joe's that went to Sacred Heart, and it was a totally different experience. Most of the guys that we went there had been in Sacred Heart through the minor seminary and were continuing on, and so we were kind of assimilated into that culture. But it was a lot more open. We had a lot more ability to walk off the grounds, and it was an eye-opening experience.
Did you go 2 years there, Bill?
Just one year, and then decided that that eye-opening experience was very eye-opening. Decided this.
How did you go from there, Bill?
I went into the Peace Corps.
Oh, okay.
Spent 4 years in the Philippines.
Wow.
My time in Hawaii was about 2 months. I didn't get to see the sites that you got. I was on the island of Molokai, which
Wow.
had only pineapple and the leprosarium.
Yeah.
You were in the jungle.
Well, pretty much. Yep. Spent 4 years like that. Yeah.
Well, I mean, I had a kind of a interesting transition. I mean, I left Baltimore. I was in Ann Arbor, which at that time was the epicenter of the protest of the war for about 3 years. And then I taught school for a little bit, and then I ended up in the United States Army. To transition from those kind of venues was kind of interesting. And all the while, maybe like you, I was trying to figure out what I was supposed to do in life.
Yeah.
You know, one of the things that struck me from our conversation here this evening was somebody, maybe it was Dick, how did that experience of the solitary life, how did that affect us in after we left the seminary? And I would say that that our life in the seminary was focused. It was study. It was learn. Forget all of this other stuff. Your job there was just to study whatever it was that was there for us to learn. And when I left, I mean, that kind of mindset got me through the next 2 years of school at Wayne State. I just knuckled down and just, you had these books to read, you read them, you studied them. And in a sense, that kind of stymied my personal growth because, well, first of all, there were some fraternities down at Wayne State, but not to the extent of other colleges. And so there wasn't any way for me to really personally interact with other people. And I probably wouldn't have, even if the opportunity had been there. I mean, my job at Wayne State was study, learn, pass the tests, and at that time, my whole idea was I was going to teach history at the college level, and I ended up teaching in high school because and while I was doing that, I was going to getting my master's degree. I always thought, well, this is just a temporary thing. I'll just do this teaching, high school teaching until I got my master's degree, and then I would, and then I didn't know what I was going to do. So that single-mindedness that was so imbued with us at the seminary was sort of carried me on through my next few years, and I guess in many respects my own social isolationism, which created all sorts of difficulties for me over the year interacting with other people and so on. But again, that was reading into that book a lot of my own personal experiences. The one thing that did strike me, however, was I sent along that article that appeared, I forget where it was about that order of nuns in Brooklyn, that they were deciding to move out of their, I forget what it would be called, I think they were the Carmelites or something like that, that they decided to move from their mother house or whatever in Brooklyn because there was so much distraction going on outside the walls, literally outside the walls of their order. And one of the things in there that I remember seeing was the pictures of what life was like in a cloistered situation. And that got me thinking, down the road from where I live now is another cloistered, I don't even know the term that they use for that. But I always see a lot of cars parked out in front of the place, and they went through a major expansion over the last few years, and that always struck me as kind of strange because of my notion of a cloister was you were just cut off from the rest of the world. You know, but apparently, and now it kind of makes sense to me that outsiders could and are welcome to come in to the grounds, and the mass is celebrated there, but the nuns themselves are cut off from physically seeing other people during the sacraments. So that sort of helped make some more sense to me about what life was like in a cloistered situation. And then there is another monastery in Dearborn, near, I don't know if you're familiar with Warren and Telegraph area, Dick. Is that?
I know where Telegraph is, but Warren, I couldn't touch.
Yeah, there's a monastery up there that sort of comes in and out of the.
Scotus or?
No.
Okay.
But it struck me. Well, here's another situation of an isolated group of men in this monastery that you kind of wonder what life was. And I don't even know if they it might have been the last thing that they closed the place down. But we have these isolation situations around us that we're just not really much aware of what life or what is going on in there. Just a kind of a random thought.
Just you talk about the distractions. Now, this was after, but are you familiar with there was a series called The Wire?
Yeah.
Do you know what I'm talking about or not?
Yeah. The program in Baltimore.
Right. Well, actually, that it's acclaimed to be one of the best series ever made. But anyways, that was actually right in the area where we were located, in Baltimore, where it happened. This was after the fact in a way, but we were still in that environment even when we were going to school there. The neighborhoods were eroding to some extent. However, I think Edgar Allan Poe's house was around there somewhere. I don't know exactly where, but it was fairly close. And Babe Ruth's house where he lived was about a half a mile down the street from the seminary. So that's the most important thing for me.
Another thing that sort of I was wondering about is what is life like in a seminary today? How are priests instructed? I have no idea. I mean, I get the sense that the idea of certainly a minor seminary doesn't really seem to exist anymore. But does anybody have an insight into how priests or young men are prepared for the priesthood these days compared to what we experienced?
I couldn't tell you. Especially
I think that whole isolation that we suffered, and I do use the word suffered
I noticed that.
directly and cognizantly, that I think has been one of the severe causes of what the Catholic Church is going through and has been going through for the last number of years, that we just aren't in contact, or we've withdrawn ourselves from contact with things that are going on around us and relevancy to other aspects of the world. I think that whole thing has warped us in such a way that it makes the Catholic Church a monstrosity that is very hard to move forward.
I think
yesterday being Easter, I went to two different services. I went to the Catholic service, and I went to an Anglican service yesterday for Easter, and just the amount of life that the differences were amazing. And I have to admit, I'm in Florida, so you got to take that with a grain of salt too, with the Catholic Church is doing down here. But the isolation that we have imposed upon ourselves, I think, has come back to haunt us.
I think those are good insights, Bill. I appreciate that. I think you're.
I didn't mean to stop all other conversations.
No, I think it made you kind of reflect, and I think that was good. I think that I've wondered that too, in a way. You said it very well.
What was the Anglican service like?
Yeah.
I mean, it had the whole, it Catholic light, it looked like a Catholic mass. They had the epistle and the gospel, and then they went through the consecration and all of that. But it was just, I mean, first of all, it was a woman was the priest, and there were probably, it was a real small, I mean, there couldn't have been more than 30 people there, but it was at the diocese church, but it was definitely, I mean, I knew all the songs, I knew all of that, but it was just a feeling of more openness, and they specifically went out of their way to try and be open to what was going on around them.
So you're more engaged.
Definitely.
Did it feel more like a community?
Yes.
Good point.
Yes, they knew each other. I mean, by first name. Granted, very small community, but the inclusion of what was going on was very noticeable.
But I think that with the getting back to a little bit about the book, that's kind of interesting is that how now these people were in different parts, like I said, in the Levant, and the based on their tradition and that of how they kind of, if they were trying to form a community of worship, of how they tried to, I don't know, get along as a group, as a community, as you're talking, Bill. That part was kind of interesting, I think, because these are kind of maybe a forerunner of the parishes. I mean, do we have a good idea of what I don't know, maybe between say like I don't know what 50 AD to maybe the 14th century of what a parish was like or what a group was like? I mean, I get a better sense, a little bit of the what do you call it, the Renaissance, and how they tried to use the cathedral to draw people in. But talking about what you're sharing is, I think you don't get, like, what were people doing? To come together.
Let me diverge a little bit in here. It sort of follows up on this point we were discussing, is about how men are trained for the priesthood today, and that kind of is a giant leap sideways to our discussion about the use of Latin and Greek. And I remember posing that question in one of the updates: is what I guess I don't understand whether Latin is still considered to be the official language of the church. Does anybody have a definitive answer to that question, or do we know? Do we care anymore?
I have no idea.
I was just curious, when there's edicts that come out of the Pope, what language are they written in?
I think they're written in Latin, but they might come out at first through Italian. I think I read somewhere not too long ago about Latin, as far as what you just said. It's broadcast that way, I believe.
I think you're right, Dick. I think there are multiple translations that are issued at the same time, depending on what the document is.
Yeah, that's true.
Being presented, but probably Italian, English, not infrequently, and then French and Spanish, maybe some German. But that Rome functions in a multilingual. I said, not the Vatican functions in more of a multilingual fashion than it used to. But I think they still have courses that are taught in Latin, and the men who are taking those courses, they hopefully there are one or two guys in the class who have enough Latin that they can translate this stuff and educate the rest of the class that it does function that way pretty literally, I believe.
Well, according to Google, before Vatican II, during Vatican II, and today, 50 years after Vatican II, Latin is still the official language of the Catholic Church.
Yeah, that I can understand.
All the people's encyclicals are first written in Latin and then translated into other languages.
But now,
Thank you, Google.
that's because it was in Rome and in the time the Romans ruled the world a bit, but Latin and Greek were the two kind of premier languages of the world at that time. I mean, they were used. Eventually, it fell into Latin more or less. I saw a thing a couple of days ago that let's see, Mandarin, Hindi, English, Spanish are the most I don't know, the familiar languages of the world now. And over 50% of your of Catholics are in Africa. So what are you supposed to do? I don't know.
Well, following up on Bill's interjection there, the official words that get parsed out for their meaning are the Latin words.
Yes.
Coming back to uh, the seminarians that I see going through the diaconate and then being ordained and going into ministry most of them have a very traditional sense of Catholic faith that is it is not in tune with the presentation of faith that Francis has. Of course, there aren't many people who have that presentation that excuse me, that he has of feeling in his gut that every person is a meaningful friend and share of the planet, and is on the same journey.
Paul, rejoinder to what you said, I agree. I would say, remember, he's a Jesuit. The reason I say that is it's interesting because I go to St. Mary's here in Ann Arbor is run by Jesuits. And their approach to the Mass and everything, and I've gone there for for over many years, is a different outlook than if you St. Francis Parish. I think you're right. I don't dispute you. You're right on. But it's interesting, the Jesuit, because they will sometimes say, as St. Ignatius said, and then they'll give their spiel on whatever they're talking about. I don't get the engagement as much with the priest that I've encountered with St. Francis. It's refreshing in a way. Bill was pointing out, in my opinion. I'm talking about the experiences I've had with St. Mary's, and I go there, fairly regularly. So,
What about our other language, Greek? And I was hoping that we might be joined by some of the guys who were in the later post 1966 graduating classes. At what point we had like 5 years of Greek, and yet I wonder after us how it dwindled out. Is it taught? What was it taught at any point? Continued after 65, 66? The classes of 67 through the 70s. Does anybody know? Have an inkling about that?
I do.
all I can say is that I'm glad I took it, and that it has both the Latin and the Greek and Spanish. But Latin and Greek especially have given me a lot of insight into thinking, especially about words and understandings. Paul's alluded to this a couple times already about the meaning of words that are given by the Pope or from the Vatican, if you will. And that gave me a lot better understanding of English. And my personal opinion is that if you look at what this group, and I'm talking about the others too if they're not here, the three main areas in the Middle Ages were there was the cleric and the doctors and the lawyers. And then when you look at what a lot of us eventually did kind of have done through our careers, we've either been in like social services in legal with respect to Peter, and I don't know about medicine, but Mike, you did a lot of work in writing.
Yes.
And that they gave a lot of emphasis on vocation, and I think we took it seriously. But I think that subliminally that it was already preparing us for what we could do. We just had to believe in what we could do, even if it's history, like Bill was doing. But it's a lot of it has to do with writing and reasoning. And the language, understanding from other perspectives is incredible, I think.
That's
Just
right.
understanding words and what
Mhm.
people are trying to say.
I don't know if priests in our diocese, most priests now go to the seminary after college, I think, and they
That's right.
send them up to St. Thomas University in St. Paul, Minnesota. There's a seminary part of that college. And I don't know if they go there 1 year or 2 year, depending on what education they have. Then they go to Mundelein in Chicago. I don't know if they have any Latin classes at either one of those seminaries, whether they study Latin at all anymore. I don't know. I mean,
Is that
I
the
don't
St.
care, but
Thomas that's on NPR and they do all those special reports? I wonder.
I think so, yeah. It's a pretty big school, yeah.
Right.
Yeah. They're all coming out though. They're all going through the same program and they're all coming out all robots. They're all the same now. Very
Yep.
conservative, very pious, very old churchish. It's we're not getting any variety. We're not getting anything new taking place.
Amen.
Bill, in Ann Arbor, and I go by it all the time, they have a synagogue and an Anglican church that share the same venue, the synagogue and the church. And their symbol is a Star of David and a cross. And it's very close to St. Francis. And I've been to the Jewish services for bar mitzvahs, but I wonder how many places there are like that in the United States that combine those two religions, and they share the venue and everything. And the venue is like the half circle that the Jewish what do you call it? I don't know what they call it, but how they set up the congregation and the worshipers. I don't know if any of you have ever come across that.
That made me think back to, must have been when we were either in 65, or certainly, but in the early 66, we made some trips out to other churches. Does anybody recall going? One of the places we went to was a synagogue. There were like small groups of us that went to these different places. And that was the first time I was ever in any other church, or certainly a synagogue in my life. Does anybody remember going to any of those places? There were a couple, one at least that was a Christian church that had really interesting architecture to it. Maybe that's why we went to that one. But anyway, I mean, here we were 6 years in, and never set foot in any other kind of religious setting. It just never even occurred to us. Even within Muskegon, we had right in my immediate neighborhood, we had St. Joe's Church for the Germans, St. Mary's for the Irish, St. Jean's for the French, and a few blocks up the road was St. Michael's for the Polish. We never went to any of those either. We stuck right to our own parish. And I recall even when we moved a couple of blocks from the physical boundaries of St. Joseph Church that we had to get permission of the pastor of St. Jean's Church, since we were now across the street and into his territory. We had to get permission from him to continue going to our church. Subsequently, all of those churches have merged or gone out of existence. I thought that was kind of interesting. That one thing that I put out in that last thing about St. Jean's, the church that is now going to be torn down, as they were trying to find a way to relocate what was the rectory to someplace else so the Muskegon schools could take over the whole block and demolish the church itself. That was the one that we technically belonged to because we were a block into his territory. I mean, that gives us a good sense of how parochial the thinking was in those days. You didn't have any choice about what church you went to. If you lived within a certain geographic area, that's the church you had to go to, unless there was some way you could get around it. Just
I was where our home was. This is amazing to me. There was a field on one side, and it led to the back to the parking lot of the Christian Reformed Church, and there was a roadway that led to that parking lot. So in the wintertime, because of the snow and everything, they'd always have it open, which my mother always called the gates of heaven. So, but two on the other way, which I don't know what direction, but anyways, two or three houses down was the Jewish synagogue on Fulton Street, and across the street was Aquinas College. So all three major religions were literally maybe less than a 5-minute walk from where I lived. I was in that synagogue once when it was first started, but I've been in a mosque in Turkey. I went into a mosque, saw a mosque there. In Grand Rapids, besides St. Thomas, which was the home parish for me, I went to St. Alphonsus, the Information Center, and St. Andrews. My parents would go to church there different times in there. So never had a problem about getting in as long as they gave money. They didn't care.
Oh, well, listen, while we've got some folks here, there was talk in the last couple sessions about planning a physical get-together sometime in the few months in the future. I'm kind of looking at my own calendar and talking with my wife. We're going to be in the Grand Rapids area sometime in mid to late July. So if anybody is thinking in terms of having a get-together, it would probably take us that long to get somebody to come forward and actually organize a location like before. But that works for us. We're going to, our thinking was, and I guess my own thinking was, if we wanted to have a get-together somewhere in southeast or southwest of Grand Rapids, that would work out real well for us, because we like staying at a place in Grand Rapids, and then well, if we had a get together, I could go on to that, and she could go up to the Meyer Gardens, and then we're going to head over to Muskegon for a family get together. So kind of keep that in mind. If
Where do you think, like last time, like that Southwest, are you thinking around Kalamazoo? It seemed pretty, none of us are, Bill's about the closest. No, Bill isn't there because Bill saying he's in Battle Creek, but he's in Florida.
When are you coming home, Bill?
I'll be coming home at the end of this month, but Paul's in Kalamazoo.
Well, he's close, yeah. That, I mean, that Red Rock, what was the Red Rock, wasn't it? Or not Red Rock, Black Rock.
Right. Yeah. Different color rock.
That was fine for me. I thought that was also that some of the people were coming from, you know, like from St. Joe or passing Chicago or along there. It's decently close to Grand Rapids.
the only thing that I didn't particularly like about that place was we had like 22 of us there. We were really crammed in.
We couldn't see each other. I mean,
right, exactly. We had that kind of long table. If you got stuck down at the end, like I was,
yeah.
you know, I saw the guys immediately around me, but never got to really talk with
I
anybody
agree.
else.
That was an issue.
Just because of the way it was a long, narrow space.
If you were to have it, let's say we're in a park or something, then you could move around or everybody could see each other a little bit easier. I mean, I don't know if everybody brings a Kentucky Fried Chicken and we just haul it out, but I mean, the food isn't as important as the people, just seeing the people and talking with them. A venue.
Yeah, I remember we had a long discussion about that last time, or was it the year before that, about having an outdoors one, and we went back and forth about the issue of actually the alcoholic beverages seem to be says a lot about this group. But I don't know. I guess we were always concerned about the weather, and you know, what. So in indoor setting, maybe west of Grand Rapids, I get over to Muskegon
You have to be on the beach. That's where we started in the first place.
Right.
Yeah, well, Bill already has the setting for us. So what the
yeah, you know, my thought was somewhere along that western coast, or even southwest of Grand Rapids. I don't even recall. I'm over there so rarely. I don't even really remember much about the location and what's where and so on. So I'm open for just about anything, anytime, anywhere. Just you start thinking about it.
Well, Bill, I have a suggestion. Why not try to have one early May, this Zoom meeting, and then plan it there for like we were saying in June. It'd give you a chance to have more people give input, and maybe we get a lead on something.
He was talking about end of July, did you say, Bill?
Yeah.
Well, I only said mid to end of July only because if we have our next Zoom meeting in 2 months, that'll be like early June. And that's, it always seems to take us a long time to get something together. And so that's why I thought it might be more feasible to try to shoot for July.
Yeah, that's fine. You could put it out in one of your bulletins you send out every.
Right.
I agree
Bill,
with
it's always-
setting. The last setting, was tight, and that long, narrow, tight table was not really good. So somewhere more open.
Yeah. Well, actually, when you think about it, the rest of the restaurant was open once we passed that 1 o'clock wasn't it something about they were closed between certain hours, and we were at the very beginning of their closing time. They kept it open for us, as I recall. Does anybody remember anything about that?
I don't know what the arrangements were.
So,
Okay,
well,
Yep,
yeah, I'll put it out in the next report on this meeting here and see where things go. Maybe, I think last time it seemed like it was Al Wamhoff and Frank Marfia that kind of, does that sound familiar to somebody, anybody that remembers going to it?
yeah, we went to Al Wamhoff's house.
Oh, that, yeah.
And Frank Murphy was there, and Paul and I were there, and just a few of us were there.
Yeah, I think, but the contact for the bigger get together, I think was Al. And
Was
somebody
Al
else.
Babinski involved with it or not?
No,
We were going to go to Garfield Park. near the
Originally,
seminary.
but that was the first one before yeah, you're right.
No.
I think Frank Unger helped with that too.
oh, right, okay.
Frank Unger, yeah.
So, look, actually, I think it might really, we talked about this once before about getting together with Samaritas and having a get together in what's left of the chapel. We'd have to deal with whoever their approved vendors are, and somebody would have to, but it would be kind of neat to, I haven't set foot in that place since all the reconstruction has taken place. But that gets us into the issue of having to get a caterer and whether. So anyway, any other thoughts in here? Let's see. Probably after we're done here, we'll think of something. So do you want to go shoot for the first Monday in June? Does anybody have a calendar handy?
That'd be the 5th.
June 5th. Thanks, Paul.
That's fine.
All right, we'll shoot for the 5th. Whoop! I hope I'm still there. Okay, I just moved my mouse and lost everything. Okay.
Can I ask Bill what his background will be on June 5th? It's pretty nice where he's at now.
Well, you'll be surprised. It'll be also classy. Don't worry.
Okay, so we'll be watching Snap, Crackle, and Pop in the back, right?
It could be. You never know.
Hey, that would be fun.
Yeah. Thanks, Bill.
By the way, what did we do for breakfast? Did we have giant bowls of cereal?
That was it. Yeah. Big metal bowls.
Yeah.
Big scoops and cereal bowls.
Yeah.
Well, the bread was the best.
All right. Well,
Starting
Good
to worry
job.
about you guys and this memories that you've got. I don't know.
At least we have them yet.
right.
Well, that's true. I admire you for that.
All righty. We'll see you again. Don't know where, don't know when.
Thanks,
We
Bill.
know where, and we know when. Let's put it that way.
Sounds good. Thanks, everyone.
Okay, bye,
Yeah.
guys.
Good talking.
Good to talking with you
Have a good
guys.
Easter, everyone.
All righty. Bye.
Bye.
Aye.